The way we see God impacts how we relate to God. It impacts what we can receive from God. It impacts how we interact with God throughout our day. Hey everyone, it's Chris here. Well, you know that I grew up in quite a staunch Greek home. If you've seen my big fat Greek wedding, that is definitely my big fat Greek life. Now, there are a lot of positive things about growing up Greek, but sometimes there was a couple of negative things too. One of them was my perception of God that was formed because of that kind of very religious culture that I grew up in. I remember I would do something wrong, which I have to admit was really regularly, like all the time. So my mom or my big Greek aunts, exactly like you're imagining, what they would say is, Christina, stop doing things wrong, because if you do this thing wrong, God will punish you. God won't be happy with you. God won't like you. Now, I know that they didn't really mean any harm. I know that now. But you have to understand, when you're a kid, those words form your thinking about who God is. And I definitely got a distorted image of God in my mind. Okay, so I was like this kid, and I imagined God as this big guy in the sky. Big white beard, exactly like what you imagine. I must have seen a TV show at some point, with a huge stick, just waiting for me to do something wrong, which was like really regularly. And then he would just thump me on the head if I did something wrong. And so here is the deal. I got to see God as this aloof, distant father that didn't really care about me personally and just wanted me to stay in line. And the only way I would experience God is if I was doing something wrong and he was correcting me, or he was reprimanding me, or he was ashamed of me, or he was embarrassed by my behavior. So the last thing I truly would have ever believed about God when I was growing up was pretty much what David wrote in Psalm 119. David wrote, "You are good, and you do what is good." I cannot tell you how far that thinking was from my mind. There was no way that I would have thought that, you're good, you do what is good, that you just love me. Needless to say, there was a lot of undoing and unlearning that had to happen in my life when I became a follower of Jesus, especially when it came to my perception of God, and especially my perception of God the Father, or a God that wanted good things for my life and that wanted me to flourish and that wanted me to prosper. I really didn't understand that Jesus came that I might have life, and life more abundant. I mean, let me tell you, when I was growing up, I did not think that there was a God that wanted me to have an abundant life. I thought he just wanted me to be beige and boring and have a personality bypass and just kind of sit in a little box and not flourish in any area. I wonder today, what's your perception of God? Because so many things frame our perception of God. Some of us, we can have a perception of God that's full of disappointment or disillusionment. Maybe something didn't go the way we had wanted it to go. Maybe we were believing God to heal someone and they died. Maybe we were believing God for a relationship to make it, but it ended in divorce. Maybe we were believing God for a promotion in an area of life, and you know what? That didn't happen. That job breakthrough didn't happen. That ministry opportunity didn't open up. It seemed like that business venture failed. Well, the fact is that can then make us think inadvertently, sometimes subconsciously, that God doesn't want me to flourish. God doesn't want the best for me. If he did, that person wouldn't have died. If he did, that relationship would have made it. If he did, you know what? It is amazing where the enemy gets in and he distorts our view of God. Maybe you grew up in a home that was not loving. Maybe you had an absent father. Maybe you had an angry father. Maybe you had a father that was an addict, or a father that hurt you or abused you in some way, shape, or form. And you know what? It's very hard for you to think of God as a loving father, as a kind father, as one that is full of mercy or grace or peace. What I want you to do today is to maybe just take some moments to pause somewhere throughout the day and just think about, how is it that you see God? How perhaps has your past or a past experience caused you to view God? And is it the way that God is described in the Bible, as a God that is kind and gracious and compassionate and merciful, as a God that does good and is good? Because the way we see God impacts how we relate to God. It impacts what we can receive from God. It impacts how we interact with God throughout our day. And my prayer for you today is that perhaps if you came from a family where your whole concept of God the Father, I mean, me even using that word just triggers you. I'm believing God that today He will do a supernatural work in your heart and spirit and help you to see Him as a loving and a kind and a gracious and a merciful Father that knows you, that loves you, that sees you, that cares about you, that cares for you, that wants to provide for you, that wants to protect you. A God that would never shame you, a God that would never guilt you, but a God that loves you and came that you might have life and life more abundant. And perhaps if you were in a circumstance that caused you to question God's love for you, things didn't work out and you've lived with disappointment or discouragement or disillusionment, my prayer for you today is that you will feel the love of God in a very supernatural way, where you will be able to separate what happened to you from who God is, and that you will understand that our God is able to work all things together for our good and for His glory if we continue to trust Him, that He's a good Father and that He loves you. Don't step away from God because you haven't yet seen the promise in your life. Continue to move forward, continue to believe God, continue to hope for the best, and know that your Father in heaven loves you, that He is for you, that He does good, that He is good, and He came that you might have life and life more abundant. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. I hope you'll share your thoughts in the comments, and if you feel led, please share this video with a friend who needs to see it. Thanks so much for watching.